Before we let Ma'am Felice go, any questions po for her?
It's not a question actually, but I would like, or we would like to thank you, ma'am, for being so wonderful. And the description that ma'am, when she introduced you, that you are a national treasure, yes, yes you are. And we are very happy that you were able to grace this occasion today, and that we've learned a lot. And well, I would promise that I would also share what I've learned today with my students. So I hope all of us would share and be proud to be Filipinos. And thank you very much.
I hope that Nancy treasure.
Well, it's better than being a certified antique.
Ma'am Felice, I'd just like to ask if, I'm Tunette. I write for the Inquirer, but I'm here as an editor. I'd just like to ask you, dun sa panahon, yung 40 years ng cultural advocacy nyo, culinary advocacy, culinary tradition advocacy, or yung buong cultural heritage advocacy. Sino sa mga Filipino yung nagpa-practice na ng talagang may pagpapahalaga dun sa kanilang culinary tradition? Kami ba mga Kapampangan o are what?
If it's culinary traditions specifically,
Thank you. If it's culinary traditions specifically, I think first you have to go into families and households because that's where it stays intact. And the idea of promoting province-wide really has been only recent. In fact, I'm very pleased that now we're going regional. And it's not just national. Once upon a time, we spoke in terms of generalizations, not just the Philippines, even other countries. Everything was the big picture. And now, because we have tourism, and we also have the green revolution, and wanting to find the right soil and the right water for the right plant, we now have to look into the regions and see where's the correct match. The soil, the water, the temperature, the plant. That's one thing. So that's the green part of it. The other thing also is, now we're also saying, well, in this place where the match was correct, for instance, they used to do this before. They used to grow this before. And suddenly go into, well, what else did they do? You know, how come? Has it disappeared or does it still survive? And you couple that with the awareness of cultural work. There was no such thing before. Cultural work was maybe arts, you know, you like painting, you like sculpture. But the broadening of what is culture started only in the 70s. And it came here little by little, slowly also, and it was really only in the 90s, well, 80s. In 1987, when we had the Presidential Commission for Culture and Arts that predated, was the antecedent of the National Commission for Culture and Arts. So now you have a broadening of what is meant by culture. It's not just arts. Arts is part of culture. And then you go into, this is a real quick summary, and then what you have is you have tourism saying, wait a minute, do we sell our culture? Thailand did it perfectly. Thailand sold landmarks and food. I just finished a lecture on that the other week, on cuisine or culinary writing and tourism and how they come together. So now you have, we can make money if we know what our quote culture is, what are the highlights of our culture, including the food. Thailand began, I think Thailand's first first master plan for tourism was around 1976. And in 4 years, by 1980, tourism became their their number 2 earner. Agriculture was always number 1, then tourism went up. And Asia, ASEAN, was watching. So then suddenly we're also, okay, culture. What culture do we have? What can we show? Do we go to the old churches? Do we go to the landmarks? Do we have natural wonders? What about the food? Then we had, during the Macapagal period, Macapagal Arroyo, one product, one town. That's Japanese. That's part of the Japanese master plan. So one product, one town. Product, generally food. So again, the food, the culinary culture becomes very important. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's the sequence. And if you need more, just ask me. Nancy, Heidi. Another national treasure.
No.
Who doesn't want to be a certified antique?
Without any politics, will we ever see a national artist as a culinarian as a national artist like Maria Orosa, Doreen, Nora Daza?
The criteria for national artists will eventually have to be revisited. But it's really as artist, huh? It's not as heroine, it's not as scientist, it's as artist. See? So, we don't even have, for instance, a photographer. We don't even have a national artist who's a photographer. Or who is a graphic designer. So in terms of food becoming an art, remember, now beyond nutrition, this is like really art is what we're talking about. I'd like to think that eventually, yes, Nancy, I certainly want to see it. There are a lot of young chefs now who I think are on the track of merging artistry, true artistry, with what they're doing. So I think let's try to get one. Let's really try to stimulate that and get one. Maybe not yet for the names you mentioned, although they are the pioneers, undoubtedly, and I believe sincerely. All of those who believe in the importance of culinary traditions, you know, we really have to do something and honor those people. We don't have a good chronology of the people that really made the difference in how we looked at our food. Some of them will be like Maria Orosa, who comes out of the science department. There will be people like Nora Daza,
Enriqueta,
David Perez. Exactly. These are the old ones. But no one is doing the biographies of these people. You have to do there's a process to this. You have to do the biographies. You have to prove why they were important. What did they do? What did they pioneer? What did they set in action that people started to follow? Because it's not just they set up a company and then they had a branch and it survived for 100 years. No, it still goes beyond that to give them that honor. But you may discover, you just might discover people. If we all look at this a little better in the regions, you may find something. I'm all for that. Anything else?
I don't know if this is a valid question, but the Kapampangans have laid claim to the title culinary capital Pampanga, of the Philippines. Do you think this is a valid claim?
Well, that's very subjective. What I would do to play it safe, as if I called myself the culinary queen, I would
Say adobo.
say, yes, like adobo queen. I would explain with a subhead or two what I mean by culinary capital of the Philippines. And focus on those one or two subheads as the way that you brand the province as the culinary place. Because if you think in terms of culinary capital, remember, you've got Metro Manila. So, how do you brand yourself a little more precisely? What have you got that nobody else has? And earlier we were kidding, and it's not because I have Ilonggo roots, but I said, if there's any other province that maybe might be in the running for some kind of ranking in food, it might be Iloilo. But this is for old-fashioned food. Although they do have some really good stuff now that's new. The baking is excellent. But there's nothing wrong with I remember I wrote an article many years ago, and I called Pampanga the gourmet province. So that's almost the same as saying it's the cultural capital of the country. But again, that was okay for an article. But if you're going to brand yourself, and you're not just thinking of the Philippines, we need to brand ourselves knowing that we are marketing the Philippines globally. So think in terms of why would one place in Europe, for instance, call itself the capital of whatever, the culinary capital. What are the criteria that they're using? And then see, is it something like that for us, or do we have to invent? There's nothing wrong with inventing. We invent. Why? We sincerely believe that we are the culinary capital, and you do everything to be sure that when people ask, you have the proof. Yes, see? Because we have this number of cooks, we have this number of restaurants, we have this number of Michelin chefs, and we have the greatest number of restaurants in this area that was, let's say, included in the Miele. We have I mean, you have to figure out your own criteria. Or is it because every single house, big, small, rich, poor, in our province, they make the best fiesta food? I don't know. You need to think about it. I would get some branding experts along with some historians, some people who are really cooking, people who are in marketing of food, and then you can tweak that. You can tweak it.
My hostess for lunch where I had, comfort food is Sally's food.
On behalf of the KFI board and the Museo ni Angeles, I'd like to thank you, Feliz, for a very interesting and educational talk. Yeah, it also makes me proud to be Filipino. I hope we can do this again sometime in the future.
Be okay if we have a 5-minute break for coffee and